Well, let's introduce you to my guest in Doha, Andreas Krieg, Assistant Professor in the Defence Studies Department at King's College, London. Good to have you with us. Firstly, why is Aleppo so important?
As you said in your introduction already, it used to be the biggest city in Syria before the war. It's the commercial hub, but most importantly, it's the ground zero for the revolution. It's the place to hold strategically if you want to control the north of Syria. And I think for the psyche of the revolution, it's very important that they keep hold of this city. That's why the Syrian government has invested so much in trying to capture it.
Who has a game plan there? I mean, it seems, looking at from here, that it's only the Syrian government. They'll kill or maim or take out whatever is in their path. What's everybody else doing?
I mean, in Syria, effectively, we're having a surrogate war, a proxy war, whereby the entire world has somewhat their hands in this conflict. There are a variety of different proxies who are operating for their patrons at home, for their sponsors. And some sponsors have a lot of control and leverage over their proxies, and some others don't. So the most important, let's say, polls that we had in the last couple of weeks and months have been United States and Russia. Both of them have a completely different playing field on the ground. Russia has a lot of leverage over the regime, relatively. They have a lot of leverage over some of the other forces, Shia militias, as well as obviously some Iranian forces such as Hezbollah.
America, nothing.
And America, on the other hand, has invested very indirectly to support some of the proxies, but they haven't been very effective in doing so. We've seen that last week. There were a couple of special forces from the US trying to enter into northern Syria, and they were basically chased out by some of the Free Syrian Army opposition groups that were supposed to be the proxies of the United States. So there are some groups who take help, who take training, who take money from the United States, but they do not want to cooperate with them as operationally embedded in the same military, in the same force.
What about the Russians taking money from the United States? Could that change the game plan here?
No, it's not about money, obviously.
Oh, really?
For the United States...
Well, what about the Russians? I mean, they you know, according to your thoughts, which I'm plagiarizing from, they're doing a pretty cheap war.
Correct. But if they're fighting a war, it's about strategic interest. Obviously, the same as Ukraine, Putin is trying to probe the West, show that he's still a superpower. So it's not about money. But he's, as you correctly said, it's a cheap war that Russia is fighting. Both of them are fighting a cheap war. Proxy war is always about trying to keep the cost as low as possible. But for the Russians, they're trying to fight a war where they still have a lot of leverage over the ground forces. They're still using their air power, so they can directly change situations on the ground. But they're still doing that with financially very little cost. They're using contractors on the ground to fight for them. Most commonly, there are former Russian soldiers who are now working for private military companies who are affiliated with the Kremlin, but they're actually not officially, not Russian soldiers. So that gives them a degree of deniability. It makes it very cheap to fight the war. So what we need to do here, what the United States have to do, is basically raise the stakes for Russia. The cost of war for Russia has to grow, because Russia will not fight this war at any cost. They're doing so right now because they're saying these are strategic interests. We can meddle in what is happening locally on the ground. We can change the outcome, but we can do that very cheaply. Now, if the costs are going up, then obviously they will not continue to do so. And this is where the US is coming in. If they want to change something, it's not about trying to find another diplomatic solution. It's not about negotiations, but it's about basically coercing the Russians to comply with Western demands, US demands. And
as you say, sorry, there's so many players here at the moment. Now we're hearing that Iraqi militia have entered the fray. I mean, what sort of dynamic will that bring into the scenario of war?
They're again on the same side, they're playing on the same side as the Russians do. They're proxies of Iran. They are being not only staffed with Iraqi militias, these militias are Shia militias. They're being staffed also with Afghanis who are being brought from Afghanistan to fight in Syria. And the issue of that is obviously that even more leverage for Russia to change the outcome of the operation. And the Americans have absolutely no stake in this whole war, because all they're doing is flying their air operations against ISIS targets.
Okay, but raise the stakes, as you say. Very good to have you with us, Andreas Krieg.
Thank you.